I'm going to repair this Konica Vintage Lens. These Konica Hexanon AR lenses, over time, they can get to where the focus ring will slip. So if you grab this, instead of it allowing it to focus in and out, it'll just twist freely and you won't be able to focus the lens at all. It just slips inside. To do that, you got to take the front off of it and do a little bit of work here. So I'm going to try to open it up and keep that from happening. So the easiest with these, you don't really have to take the front ring off on most of them. Some you might, but these AR 52 millimeters, it's f1.8. This applies to a lot of the Konica lenses, but usually you can just remove this without having to take this ring off. This ring on some of the lenses allows you to get to screws and other things to break it down. And you have to use a tool like this to push in on it and remove this portion. But with these Konicas, usually you can grab them, twist really hard, and you may need to use rubber gloves to break this loose, but you can unscrew the whole faceplate with the focus extension on here. So just unscrew this all the way. Just keep off to the side. Inside of them, this ring here holds this piece in. This portion here is a complete lens group. So if you take this out, it'll hold the top 4 lenses, I believe it is, all together, so they won't slip and come out into pieces. But usually keep them upright and try to keep from getting dust down in here. You won't even affect the aperture blades at all going into it this way instead of from the rear. You take a tool like this. Sometimes these things are tight, but usually not terribly tight. You can press down on this and break this lens group apart here. Loosen it. This one wasn't terribly tight. Just carefully back it out by hand. That'll come out. Should stay in one section with this whole group of lenses together. Set it to the side, try not to get it too dusty. You can see the internal elements in here, the aperture blades. You can move it back and forth. This is the E version of this particular lens. There's also a M42 mount. That's a little bit easier to adapt to new cameras like Sony's or whatnot. It allows you to put extensions on them easier to get closer focusing. But this is a standard Konica mount. Just keep it on the E section there and it keeps the blades closed. Behind here, there's a small screw hidden on it. So you need a tool like this to fit in these 2 small slots there. Hold it tight, break this loose. Try not to get any debris down inside of the lens. Just slowly back this portion out. That'll just come right out. In this, it's hard to see, but there's a small screw just off to one side here. This portion of the lens will actually separate and come apart to where you can get to the screw a little bit easier, but most of the time they're glued on and stuck. Sometimes you have to use acetone to dab a little bit around here and let it soak in to where you can remove this section. But majority of the time you can get a small screwdriver to that screw. See if I can get a little bit more light on this. Not sure how easy this is to see. Okay, right here, there's a screw. Get this to focus well. There's a kind of a one that's screw that's bigger than the others, sits down in this section. And if you can get the screwdriver down in here, you can tighten this, and this is what controls how tight this ring is to allow it to focus. The helicoil moves this portion in and out, and it also moves the rear element back and forth so it focuses the front group and the back group together to get focus. What you need to do if this is slipping already back and forth, if you squeeze it in as hard as you can usually get enough grip on it to force the rear element all the way out, and that will force the rear element out as far as it can and the front up, and that allows you to set it at infinity. And once you get it where this lines up in infinity and this is all the way out, then you tighten that screw down and it'll have your focus adjusted and set to infinity instead of somewhere in between with it. See if I can get a little more light on this again. So right here is that screw. Take this screw, and it takes a really small head to get it in there. Once you've got that set on infinity, take this screw and tighten it down good and firm, and that will lock the focus ring down and keep it from slipping anymore with it. And that screw getting loose and allowing this to slip back and forth, it'll kind of wear down in time and sort of scratch up the internals on it. Can even cause metal shavings to work loose and get into the lens portion itself. But if you get the lens groups set at infinity, this pushed all the way back, and then the marking set on to infinity here, then you tighten that screw down firm and tight, and that will allow your helicoil to catch and move back and forth, and you can see that coming in and out. That'll allow your groups to move front and back like they're supposed to. And that's usually where the majority of these rings come loose, and it happens on a lot of their lenses over time. Just wear with years. It'll just gradually either back out or it'll wear metal loose inside and sort of grind back and forth. But once you set that up, tighten that screw down good and tight, you can just reassemble it back together. So just drop it back down or move it up. In this case, it makes it a little bit easier. Just get this piece here, screw it back down into it. Lock it. Tighten it down with this. Get it good and firm. you can set your lens group down into it, and you just, these things are hard to get lined up, but it usually even takes me quite a few tries to get it to where the threads will come together and spin into place. You get it most of the way back in by hand. If you have a tool like this, it'll speed it up. Use that tool to get it good and firm to where it's not rattling around in there. Then you can just take this outer ring, thread it back in, and it has little ridges in it that keeps it from coming loose. Just turn it pretty firm, not super tight, in case you ever need to get back in there and work on it again. And then check for any movement on it. That'll allow it to come back in. You should see this coming flush, the back element, to make sure that it's set at infinity. This will work in. This going back out, get your close focus. This will recess down inside of it. And if it's not slipping anymore, you should be good to go, fixed. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I'll try to do a little more repair on some of these older vintage lenses and show you how to fix a few of the other Konicas and some of the other brands when I get a chance. Thanks for watching.